One of the most devastating truths to learn as we get older is that some people choose not to change. No matter how much we try or how much time and money and energy that we invest into them. The power, willingness, and actions needed for change come from within. And if someone's not willing to take a good look at themselves, make steps to facilitate change, and put forth effort to making those steps and creating change, there's nothing to be done. We cannot wish or push someone into change if they don't want to. And that is super frustrating, especially when it's a person that you've invested a lot of time into or someone that you love or care about a lot. And what happens when a person won't change their ways? What happens when we beat our heads against the wall and hope and wish for something to get better, but it just doesn't? What happens when they ask for our forgiveness over and over again, but never change? What then? Our focus text for today is short, just 2 verses. Then Peter came and said to him, "Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times?" Jesus said to him, "Not 7 times, I tell you, 77 times." Now, the 77 times doesn't mean a literal 77 times. It's not like if someone sins against you 78 times, then, well, you don't have to forgive them anymore. No, Jesus is saying forgive people as often as you need to forgive them, an infinite number of times. Well, that's something. You know how we've been talking the past few weeks about how forgiveness is hard? Well, forgiveness is hard. And what is biblical forgiveness, really? It's letting go of resentment, giving up any claim to be compensated for the hurt or loss that we've suffered. But what about when we want justice for something that was done to us? When we've been hurt and we want the other person to hurt just as much as we do. And not only that, but we don't want to say that a sin or an evil that someone does against us is okay, right? There is a difference, a huge difference, between saying a bad behavior is okay and forgiving someone. And we get the two conflated a lot. Forgiveness is not about saying that bad behavior or really that evil that was done to us or that we did to someone else is okay. It's not. And forgiveness is not about welcoming someone back with 0 boundaries, 0 consequences, or brushing whatever they did under the rug. It's not about forgetting what has been done. Forgiveness is also not about getting back at a person. Withholding forgiveness really doesn't actually do a whole lot to the other person, to be perfectly honest. You know, I want you to think for a moment about your own personal burn book. Your list of all of the people who have wronged you, who have made some foolish comment that hurt you deeply, who bullied you, who took something or someone from you, someone who you believe changed your life in all of the wrong ways. Now, sit with those feelings for a moment. All of those things that you feel about those people, they are real. They are personal. They are legitimate. Now ask yourself, how many of them have you forgiven? Like, really, truly forgiven? Are you holding a grudge against any of those people? Allowing what happened to eat away at your soul, even if it's happening ever so slowly? And how many of them, by you refusing to forgive them, are affected by that in any way? Is your lack of forgiveness like a stain on their soul? Do they even know that they did something to cause you to hold a grudge against them? Do they care? My guess is probably not. We are often holding a grudge, having something eat away at our souls over something that happened that the person who did it to us is completely unaffected by. We are clutching to what they did like a security blanket, unwilling to let it go because we think that it will bring us justice, because we want to be mad, because we want the hammer of God to be brought down against them. And then we believe we'll receive our retribution. But does it really work like that? Change is something that happens within us. Us withholding forgiveness against another person doesn't bring about change in them because, quite frankly, they probably do not care. And maybe they are legitimately sorry, and that's awesome. And they ask you for your forgiveness. And maybe they really do want to change. And that's where you can rebuild trust and come to a point of reconciliation. But if they don't know that they did something to you, or they don't care about it, then you forgiving them doesn't do anything for them. Do you know who it does heal, though? You. Forgiveness is not about receiving justice. It's not about saying what someone did is okay. It is saying that what a person did is so not okay that you refuse to allow it to tie you down, to absorb you, to take over your life. And so you are cutting it away, releasing it like chains dragging you down. Several years ago, I read a sermon by Reverend Nadia Bolz-Weber that completely changed my outlook on forgiveness. She said, that's why we need to forgive, because we can't be bound to that kind of evil, lest it find the evil in our own hearts and make its home there. She also wrote, at Calvary, God allows our human system of scapegoating, fear, and retaliation to play its natural course, which ends, as it always does, in the suffering of God. And then in turn, God shows us God's system by not even lifting a finger to condemn those who put him on the cross, but instead proclaims, of all things, forgiveness. In doing so, God cuts the world loose from our own sin, because God can't stand to see us chained to it. At Calvary, we see our God entering deeply into the suffering caused by human evil and saying, this ends here. I will not transmit it. We are cut loose. God's forgiveness is like giant bolt cutters. And then God says, go and do likewise. Forgive as you have been forgiven. Cut others loose too. Jesus' commandment. It's not actually a suggestion. He commands us to forgive just as he commands us to love. Isn't that powerful? We are commanded to let go of the anger and resentment that we cling to so tightly, always, an infinite number of times, because that blanket of unforgiveness is not a protection, but rather it's a straitjacket that keeps us bound. It smothers us. It prevents us from living the lives God intended for us because we're simply chained to what other people have done. And God says, let go. Cut those chains holding you back. Allow yourself to be free from what someone did to you, free to love others. It's hard to breathe in the vastness of God's love if we are being smothered by hatred and unforgiveness. It doesn't mean what others did was okay. It doesn't mean what we did was okay if it was us. It does mean that we believe that God's purpose, God's plan, and God's love is much bigger than what we are holding against another person. God calls us to forgive 77 times, an infinite number of times. That is what God already has done and continues to do for us. God commands us to do likewise and be set free from those chains. That is the good news of Christ. Thanks be to God for it. Amen. A couple of reflection questions for you to take with this week and talk about them with another person or just meditate on them yourselves, just to go deeper into the message. The first is think about grudges that you are holding. What would it look like to let go of them? And the second, how hard is it for you to forgive others? Why?